Book TV recently visited Capitol Hill to ask members of Congress what they're reading this summer.
I'm reading The Fish Have Moved. I'm reading James Clyburn's book, Blessed Experiences. And I'm also reading about the life of Coretta Scott King, My Life, My Love, My Legacy, about Coretta Scott King.
So what inspired these choices? The Coretta Scott King is great. I also looked at it too.
Well, let me just say that then, when Coretta was really in the movement, as now, women, in particular black women, have never gotten the kind of credit that we should have gotten for what we did in the movement. Women were very integral to the success of the civil rights movement, but you never hear much about them. You hear about Martin, you hear about Malcolm, you hear about those people, but do you hear about Myrlie Evers? Do you hear about Coretta? I mean, do you hear about people like Dorothy Height or Mrs. Lowry? So I am intrigued about the women behind these great men and the women who made the movement move. So that's why the Coretta book. The Fish Have Moved is by a pastor out of Georgia who was talking about that we've gotten so complacent in our churches that and this is how he explains it, we go to the same place to catch fish every time. Even though the last few times we've been going, the fish are not there, but we still go and do the same thing. He says, maybe we have to go into deeper waters and find the fish because the fish have moved. And so I think it's important for me, not just as a Christian, but as a leader, to figure out how do I find the fish and not expect for the fish to always be at the same place or to always come to me. And it just struck me as such a great read, very tiny book, but so powerful and impactful. So we have to figure out how to go into the deeper waters and not be afraid to go out further. We want to stand on the shore. Sometimes you got to go into deep water. So that's why that one. And then James Clyburn is my friend. I think he is probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He's a great historian, and he's had great experiences. So I want to just get some understanding of who he is, even as deeper as a person, what his childhood was like, why he became the man he is. And that's why these 3 books this summer.
So most of these books are centered around history.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where most of your interest and you find your inspiration from? Or do you have other genres that you're interested in as well?
I am big on poetry. I am big on prose. And so let's say, for instance, I were to prepare to do a speech. The first thing I would do is start to read a poem or something that strikes me, sometimes music. But mostly I love poetry. So that's inspirational to me. These books are inspirational in a different way. They inspire me to be the kind of people in these books, to measure myself against the successes of them, to know if I'm going in the right direction. You know, sometimes you look at other people and say, well, I'd like to have that trait. I'd like to be like this person. And that's why I read these. I am a big time historian, though. I love history, but I love lots of things. You know, this just happens to be my summer of reading historical kinds of books.
Book TV wants to know what you're reading. Send us your summer reading list via Twitter @BookTV or Instagram @book_TV, or post it to our Facebook page, facebook.com/BookTV. Book TV on C-SPAN 2, television for serious readers.